You want your child to be able to speak 2 languages, right? Well, then it's time to choose a language strategy. Hello everyone, my name is June from Buzzlingual, and in today's video, I'll be going over the 5 language strategies that you can implement in your home so that your child will be able to speak 2 languages. Now in today's video, I'll be referencing a study done by Professor Annick de Houwer, who surveyed over 2,000 Belgian families. Now, Belgium is a very interesting country because it has 3 official languages: French, German, and Dutch. And she went to families who were living in the Dutch area of Belgium, who also spoke a second language. So, I'll be referencing the second language as the minority language. And in this case, Dutch is the majority language. And the results were quite interesting. She hypothesized that depending on the parental input pattern, there will be different outcomes in terms of the success of bilingualism. So let's take a look at the results. If both parents restricted the use of the majority language, so Dutch, at home and only used the second language, the minority language, then the chances of success was 96.92%. If one parent only spoke the minority language at home, and the other parent used both languages, then the chances of success was 93.42%. If both parents spoke both languages at home, then the result was 79.18%. If one parent only spoke the minority language and the other parent spoke only Dutch at home, then the outcome here was 74.24%. Finally, we have strategy number 5. This is where one parent speaks both the majority and the minority language at home, and the other parent only speaks the majority language, or Dutch, at home. And the result here was 35.7%. What this goes to show you is that the greater amount of input of the minority language that you provide at home, the greater the chances of success. Now, I realize that Belgium is a completely different country from Japan, right? But I think these results are very telling. And it provides a great framework for how we approach our own language strategies at home. So let's take these percentages and apply them to Japanese homes. So first we have strategy number 1. So once again, this is where both parents only use the minority language. So in Japan, that means that both parents at home will only speak English to their children, and in the outside world, they'll speak Japanese. Now, this strategy was very similar to my own upbringing. Remember, I lived in the US, that's where I grew up, but both of my parents only spoke Japanese at home. And so I had a great amount of input in Japanese, but in the outside world, I spoke English. So I could definitely attest to this 96.92%. Now, there is a disadvantage to this strategy, and that is that it ignores the input of the majority language. So, for example, if you only speak English at home, what happens when your child goes to formal schooling, when they enter 1st grade of elementary school? Well, they wouldn't have had as much input of Japanese as the other kids, so it might cause an emotional stress to your child. For me, when I grew up in the US, yes, definitely. My English wasn't as strong as my Japanese, and so I do remember being in ESL classes for the first few years of my elementary school. Now, it didn't cause me any emotional stress. In fact, I think it helped me solidify my understanding of English grammar, vocabulary, as well as reading and writing skills. But I understand that every case is different and it might be harder to achieve here in Japan. There is another disadvantage to this strategy. If both parents or even one of the parents has a low level of English, it might cause a great amount of stress on the parent to speak English all the time at home. Still, the chances of success is very, very high here, so if you have the English ability, I definitely do recommend this strategy. Now, strategy number 2 comes in at 93.42%. Still very, very high. And in fact, this is the strategy that I am currently applying for my own children. This strategy is where one parent speaks only the minority language. So in my case, I only speak English at home. The other parent can speak both the minority and the majority language. So my wife will speak English primarily, but once in a while she'll mix in some Japanese. And this has been very, very helpful for us. Of course, I can speak my own native language, English, to my children, and my wife at times can switch back and forth. So if she has to give detailed explanations, or if she's talking to her friends, or if she's talking to my children's friends, or their parents, she can easily switch back and forth between English and Japanese. So this has definitely given us a lot of flexibility in terms of how we approach our language strategy. And at 93.42%, those are still very high odds. And when you compare it to strategy number 4, which is commonly called the one parent, one language approach, there's almost a 20% increase, just from having one parent only speak one language and the other parent speaking both languages. So, if both parents are capable, I definitely do recommend this strategy. Next, let's take a look at strategy number 3. This is where both parents will speak both languages at home. So both the mom and the dad will speak English and Japanese when they're at home. And at 79.18%, the chances of success is still very, very high with this strategy. However, the problem with this strategy is in sustainability. The child will be speaking Japanese predominantly outside of their home, so at daycare or at their elementary schools. And they also realize that, both mom and dad can speak Japanese too. And so the pragmatic part of their brain will kick in, and they'll simply choose to use the language that is easier for them, which is going to be Japanese. And so this severely compromises the need for English. But by teaching the child at a very early age that English time is fun time, you'll be able to overcome any obstacles and lead your child to bilingual success. Next, let's take a look at strategy number 4, which is commonly referred to as the one parent, one language approach. I have many friends and coworkers who follow this approach. This is where one parent will speak only the minority language and the other parent will speak only the majority language. And so this is very popular with families where both parents have different mother tongues. And there are a couple of advantages to this approach. First is that both parents can speak their native language when they communicate with the child. So this makes interaction so much more natural and they can really bring out their true selves. It also builds and establishes a need for that language, because unless you use both languages, the child won't be able to communicate with both parents. However, I do want to mention a couple of disadvantages with this approach as well. First is that it alienates the two parents. What I mean by that is that if both parents are speaking different languages, then how are the parents going to communicate with each other? Most certainly they can wait until the child is sleeping or they're out of the room to speak in one language. But for most part of the day, when they're around their children, they'll be speaking different languages. And so it might create a communication barrier between the two parents. The other disadvantage to this approach is that for the minority parent, so the parent who only uses English at home, it could be quite challenging. Once the child enters formal schooling, Japanese is going to take over. So communicating with a parent in Japanese is going to be easier. With English, not as much. And so it's going to be very difficult to maintain adequate exposure in English. So the minority parent will have to work extra hard and be able to provide tremendous amounts of exposure in the minority language. They'll have to work very hard to maintain the two core conditions of bilingual ability. But at 74.24%, those are still very, very high odds. And so if you're in a household where both parents speak different mother tongues, I definitely do recommend this one. Or even better, strategy number 2, where again, one parent will only speak the minority language, English, and the other parent can use both English and Japanese at home. Finally, we have strategy number 5, which comes in at 35.7%. And the reason why this strategy is so low is because we have one parent speaking only Japanese and we have the other parent speaking both Japanese and English. So because both parents are using the majority language, this severely impairs the input of the minority language, or English. So it goes to show you that at least one parent will have to commit to English only. However, this 35.7% is nothing to scoff at. And I do realize that for many families here in Japan, the other 4 strategies simply might not be realistic. So I definitely say take this strategy with the 35.7% and try to provide a lot of active, effective exposure. And that percentage is only going to go up. And even if you aren't actually able to achieve bilingual ability for your child, I still say do as much as you can. Because knowledge, and any little bit of knowledge, is better than nothing at all. And having that foundation at an early age is going to help the child somewhere down the line. And it's going to make learning English much more easy for your child. So please do as much as you can. Finally, I do want to finish this video by providing you with one extra approach. This strategy is called the TNP approach. The T stands for time and the P stands for place. So in your household, you can designate a specific time. For example, the first half of the day will be English only, and the second half of the day will be Japanese only. Or you can designate a specific time, for example, in the morning when you're getting ready for work or school, or in the evenings when you're having dinner, that will be English only. And so having specific times for English will really help your children switch gears into English mode. You can also select different places. For example, designate a specific room in the house as English only. So if you enter the kids' room, you have to speak English only. Or when you're in the kitchen, you have to use English only. Or when we're inside the home, we speak English. When we're walking outside, we can speak Japanese. So set those rules and those boundaries, and your kid will have a much easier time of going back and forth between the majority and the minority language. So today, we looked at many different language strategies that you can apply in your home. And I hope this video has helped you choose the perfect language strategy for you and your family. Now in doing so, I do want you to keep one very important thing in mind, and that is your children's feelings. Learning a second language and being forced to use it in the household could cause a lot of stress for your child. So please make sure that you're keeping this entire process fun and engaging, and that you yourself remain very enthusiastic about using English at home. And if you do, your kids are going to follow suit. Good luck with the bilingual journey, everyone. Please keep checking back here for more content on how you can provide active and effective exposure of English in your house. If you like what you saw today, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching, everyone. Bye!